Okay, I'd like to call to order the Vista City Council meeting for April 14th, 2015, starting with a roll call from City Clerk Marcy Killian.
The record will reflect that all members are present with the exception of Mayor Ritter.
Okay. So the pledge, if you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. It's going to be led by Councilman Campbell. And if you would, I've got Pastor David Plank, retired Navy chaplain, is going to lead us in an invocation. Would anybody else like to lead us in an invocation? Seeing none, I guess we'll go ahead and get started with our meeting. I have a notice that I'd like to read before we get started. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation for $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. So at this time, I'd like to ask the city manager for approval of the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes to the agenda.
Okay. And there was no closed session today, so there's nothing to report. We're going to start off with a couple of presentations, so some people that need to be recognized in our community. The first one I'd like to start with is the graduates of the City of Vista's 13th Leadership Academy. So the City of Vista is really proud to present the 13th Vista Leadership Academy graduating class. This academy provides insight to Vista residents on how the city operates and provides a better understanding of the city's many responsibilities and functions. Our first academy was conducted back in 2007. That session was an overwhelming success, and every leadership academy has grown since then. So congratulations to the spring 2015 participants and to the fall 2014 participants who missed it last year, at least their recognition, that is. And please come up as I call your name. So we're going to go ahead and meet here, and then I'd like you to stay here so we can take a picture with the council. And before we get started on that, if anybody would like to participate on this, it is noticed, I believe, on the website. It's a very good program. You get to learn a lot about what these people do and some of the people in the back there that help this city run, as well as the sheriff, the fire department, and just a lot of the background information that maybe you miss. And I learned a lot from doing a very similar type of program as well, and helped me get involved with the city, and that's why I'm sitting here. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and have council members join me down there, and we will recognize the participants. If you could just come down when I mention your name. So to start with, we have Edward Chedester. Next we have Margot Cobian.
Deputy Mayor.
What's that? One each? Oh, okay.
As you hand it to them, I guess.
Okay. Pretend I'm handing it back to you. There you go. Like this? All right, now we know how it works. So next we have Randy Crumpler. Jeannie de Armas. Good? Yeah. Patrick Amos. And is Zachary Gribben here? No? Okay. Cindy Hussey? Valerie Kenna. See, Leanne Linehan. You can get closer. We won't bite. Liz Littell. And we have Kareem Lopez. Ellen Miller. Congratulations. Lucy Montalvo. And we have Patrick Murphy. Anne Sophie Newsome. And we have William Newsome III. See, Stephen Pasanka. And we have Bethany Spencer. present to you the 2015 and 14 Vista Academy Leadership. Where do you want us? Everybody here? I got everybody move up, I guess, right? Yeah, yeah. Do you want us in front of the?
Oh, we're all going up there?
Baxton. You're fine. You're totally fine.
So the City Council would also like to acknowledge the participants of the Through Children's Eyes exhibition. Hopefully you had an opportunity to see that out front. These are all pictures that were taken by young people in our city. So, I mean, some of these pictures are pretty amazing. So if you haven't had an opportunity, please take a minute to take a look at those. So if we could, we'd like to have Kathy Olson of the Vista Academy of Performing Arts and Winifred Meiser, the coordinator of the event, and all the participating students come forward for a photograph. Do we have the students here? Oh, here they come. So not only are they getting a chance to display their art for you guys, they also get Wave water parks from the city as well. So that's great.
As an organization that was involved in this project with the city and the schools and a lot of local community organizations, we just wanted to show our appreciation for the support that makes the project like this happen. And initially, we want to give to our city, the mayor and the city council, a copy of the book. And it says, "What I saw and learned on a photographic hunt for public art in downtown Vista." And we have one other one that we'd like to give to the City of Vista's library, the librarian Sylvia Wolf, who helped organize the initial exhibit that our councilwoman Amanda Rigby saw and said, "Hey, we should have this over here at the City Hall." So we'd like to give that to Sylvia Wolf, if she'll come down. You can give it to her. And also, we would like to give one of these to another person who was very, very important in putting this together, and that is Bill Fortmuller. If he would come down, Bill, and get one of these nice books. And we have another book, and this is for Kathy Olson, the teacher. And if every kid could have a teacher like Kathy Olson, this world would be a wonderful, fantastic place. I wish every child to have a teacher like Kathy. Okay. Oh, okay. So you're going to take one more picture. Some. And just one last word, I always have another word, is to thank you also to all the sponsors who helped do this. The people at the city with the Wave Water Park contribution to give the children to show our appreciation for their work. And also the Cinepolis, who also has given them a free ticket each. They didn't know about this till today, a ticket to the movie theater. And also I want to say thanks to the sponsoring organizations, including the Vista Educational Foundation, who donated the cost of the books, and to the people who are all listed here that they provided the monies for the prints and so on. And one of them, Solar Heroes, happens to be present here. Nice young man who gave us a large portion of the money for the printing of the pictures. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Winnie. Thank you, kids. Have fun at the Wave. Okay, one more. So I'd like to have Debbie Shriver, Associate Executive Director of North County Lifeline. Here you are. Hello again. So we've got a proclamation for Fair Housing Month in the City of Vista that I'd like to read. Whereas federal and state fair housing law prohibits discrimination based on race, color, religion, national origin, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender expression, family status, disability, source of income, or genetic information. And whereas the City of Vista receives federal community block grant funds as an entitlement community and is required to engage in fair housing planning. And whereas the City of Vista affirmatively furthers fair housing by providing fair housing services and information to residents as part of the fair housing program adopted by the City Council, and whereas the federal government has designated the month of April as Fair Housing Month, during which interested parties from the public and private sectors will participate in a nationwide effort to provide education about fair housing laws and to promote fair housing practices. Now, therefore, the mayor and the members of the City Council do hereby proclaim the month of April 2015 as Fair Housing Month in the City of Vista. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Terry wants to take a picture.
I just also wanted to say thank you to the city, to the mayor, to city council, to Kathy Valdez, who has always been for you guys for always supporting us and funding us for the last 15 years. And that April Fair Housing Month is just a good reminder of the advances that we have made so far up to this date. But it also reminds us there's a lot that still needs to be done to eliminate discrimination. And obviously the City of Vista and City Council is obligated to this endeavor, and we're just honored to be a part of that partnership with you. So thank you so much. It means a lot to us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, now the fun stuff's over. So, actually, I do have a request from the public to maybe move up an item, which is the oral communication. Since we have so many items, we have one oral communication. If you guys are okay with that, okay. So, at this time, I'd like to invite up Linda Sabo.
Hello, my name is Linda Sabo. I've lived here in the city of Vista for over 30 years, and I've either worked for the city or with the city that entire time. And one of my former incarnations was the president of the North County Humane Society. And once you're a dog person, you're kind of always a dog person. So last week, the Wednesday the 8th, was National Dogfighting Awareness Day. And I am happy to report that we have good news for Vista. We don't have documented cases of dogfighting here. We have, however, had to deal with the fallout, which are bait dogs, which they use puppies to do horrible things to, and then the Humane Society ends up with them. So it does happen. The last case that I heard was prosecuted was in Ramona. So it's not, necessarily far, far away from here either. So I just wanted to let you all know that the even better news is, and you all have these, and I can give these out to others in the public, the National Humane Society has a program where they will pay people up to $5,000 for anonymously reporting suspicious or suspected dogfighting. So it's completely anonymous. For $5,000, people might be willing to make the phone call. As I'm sure the sheriffs can attest, usually the people who are doing dogfighting are also doing things that you don't want in your neighborhood. So it's not a, it's illegal in all states, and it's federal felony also. So that's about it. We're just keeping you up to date, and the Humane Society is doing a very good job, and so are you all. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. So next on our agenda is the consent calendar, and the recommendations on the consent calendar will be enacted under one motion unless an item is actually removed from the calendar. So the public is welcome to remove any item by submitting a request or a speaker card to the city clerk. Now, items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following. We do have one that is being removed, which is C5. Would the council like to remove any or pull any items? Okay. With that, I'd be looking for a motion to
I'll
approve.
move that we accept the consent calendar as presented with the exception of C5.
Okay. Got a motion, got a second. Please vote. Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to C5.
Deputy Mayor, would you like a staff presentation on that, or just call up the speaker?
Please.
Staff presentation.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and members of the council. I'm Allie Zimmerman, Assistant City Manager. With me tonight is Tony Winnie, Assistant to the City Manager, and he'll be providing the staff report.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members. The resolution that you have before you tonight for consideration would allow the city to partner with the Department of Justice, as we currently do, for the processing of background live scans. We currently process these for city employees, volunteers, and for certain licensing procedures within the city. Earlier this year, the City Council considered some additional regulations as they pertain to ice cream vendors. And as of January 1st of this year, the state of California passed some new legislation that would provide the city with some additional powers to regulate massage establishments within our city. The city staff is currently reviewing that piece of legislation with the city attorney's office, and will be returning to the City Council for consideration of modifications to our current ordinance as it pertains to massage establishments in May. The resolution tonight is required by the Department of Justice in order for city staff to continue to provide background checks on ice cream vendors and for the future checks that we'll be doing in relationship to the massage establishments. We're here to answer any questions you may have at this time, and that concludes my report.
Councilmember Rigby?
That was from before.
Okay.
Thank you.
So with that, I'd like to call up Mario Nunez. Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Mario Nunez. I live at 130 Champa Street in Vista, California. I'm an ice cream vendor. I've been selling here for about most of my life, so about 15 years, but my family has been in business for over 20 years. I brought some of these items up for, so we can all talk about it. But I have I'm all for background checks, but to what I want to say is I'm all for it, but are we going to be able to enforce it? That's one of my questions. Are we going to be able to enforce it? How is the public going to be able to identify an ice cream vendor, which one is permitted, who has been scanned? Therefore, that's one of the problems we have now. We have a lot of illegal vendors. We have people who sell out of their cars. We have people that sell in parking lots, and yet you guys want to pass this law, which I'm all for it, but when I went to go pay my permits for the city, it went from $180 to $900 because I have a lot of workers. And I'm all for it, but if we're going to have the staff to enforce this law, then we have to pass it. If we don't have the staff to enforce it, or a hotline where we can call to make sure that we can stop the illegal vendors, I don't think that we should pass this law.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor, if I may, if there are any reports by the council or member community about anything going on illegally in the city, you can either make an anonymous, or excuse me, you can make a report to the Code Enforcement Office here at City Hall, or to Sheriff's non-emergency number anytime, and we will follow up on those. We do take names, but we don't provide information back about who provided any complaints. That's how, if you've seen this happening, we need to know, we need your help.
Yes, I've been doing that for the last 4 years, and there's been the same vendors selling for 4 years, and that is because we are understaffed on code enforcement. During the weekend, we only have one code enforcement, and we cannot contact nobody. So that's why I'm saying, before you guys agree on this, make sure you guys have the right, the proper stuff for the public to identify the vendors that are certified to work here. That's why I believe we should wait on this and have a good plan and a good way that the public can identify, and easier for law enforcement and code enforcement to identify who can work for the city.
This item is procedural, related to authorizing what the City Council already adopted back in January, which were the changes. Not moving forward with this means that we can't move forward with the live scanning for the ice cream vendors. At this time, I believe that if you are licensed through the city and have received your permits, you get a decal, you have a business license. All of those things are supposed to be conspicuously displayed on your truck. And again, we do typically staff code enforcement with 2 officers when we're down staff. That doesn't happen, but on the weekend we do have 2 officers.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nunez.
All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Rigby?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I did want to ask Mr. Nunez a question, though, if I might.
Sure.
Going back to the raise in fees that you discussed, that it had been, I think you said 180, and then it went up to 900. Was that, and you said because you had a lot of workers and they needed their health permits?
No, it's basically because the city adopted something different. Before, we used to just pay business license, which is $68 plus a percentage. Now, we're supposed to pay our business license, which is $68, plus $68 for each conductor, which means each one of my drivers has to pay $68 and have to go through a background check, which is $58. Now, the $900 and something that I have to pay, that's for my family members. So that doesn't even include, the city wants me to also pay for 2 14-year-olds that work with me during the summer, because they want every employee to go through a background check. And and I believe, they shouldn't go through it either because they're 14 years old.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming back to answer my question, just so I can have clarification on why the increase in fees, whether it was city or county health.
Yeah,
So
it was basically all
appreciate that.
city. No problem.
Okay. And then I guess Ms. Zimmerman, you already answered my other question, which was identifying the trucks that are legal to sell, but they have, you said stickers, and they have business license that need to be conspicuously placed, perhaps in the window of the truck. Is there a way in all of our social media and community media newsletters that we could just let the public know about, since there seems to be an ongoing issue with illegal vendors, if you're, the trucks, you know, to find a permitted, licensed, et cetera, vendor, look for the medallion or the sticker in the window. Is there a way that we can just positively put out there the word about the ice cream vendors that we have in town?
That wouldn't be difficult at all. We could put an example of what a business license looks like and what the medallion looks like with an image up on Facebook and Twitter.
Just so
and all
people
that.
know that.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Councilman Franklin?
My question was going to be, are we proactively stopping and checking for credentials? I don't know if you have the answer to this right now, but
I don't believe so, unless a code enforcement officer or a sheriff's deputy observes something illegal. I don't believe they're stopping and doing checks.
and our sheriff's deputies aren't tasked with enforcing this, is that right?
The Sheriff's Department can enforce any portion of the municipal code.
They can, okay.
From a code enforcement perspective, the code officers, and typically a code officer works during the daytime hours. All code officers know who's licensed and who's not licensed in terms of ice cream trucks. But I think what Mr. Nunez is complaining about is typically after hours, after business hours. That is.
Well, and it does seem that our code enforcement is not a roving patrol in the city. I mean, they are to some extent, but they're not out patrolling for ice cream trucks. Does it make sense for us to ask the Sheriff's Department to take some note of the issue from time to time?
I think as Ms. Zimmerman stated earlier, if somebody's got a particular complaint against a company, if they can provide us with the information on the truck or the license plate, we can either have the Sheriff's Department look into it after hours, or we can have code go after or discuss it with that company during business hours. But we need to know.
Are we not permitted to stop them to inquire as to whether or not they're, if they're not displaying the correct credentials on the, so there's a decal for the outside of the vehicle. So, I mean, is that something that's been discussed? And just as a question, maybe it's something for the captain to address. I don't know if he's here.
We've discussed it at the staff level with the captain in terms of if we get these complaints, that the Sheriff's Department will look into it. They just need the complaints. But as you know, the Sheriff's Department probably has more pressing things to do in the nighttime hours than go around looking for ice cream trucks. But if they're notified, they'll do it.
No, I'm just saying if they happen to spot it, you know, maybe once a year we want to tell them, hey, this is the week we're gonna, if we see ice cream trucks, we're gonna visually look for the decal, and if we don't see the decal this week, we're gonna stop these trucks and we're gonna ask to see their credentials, because I mean, what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we have an enforcement regimen. We don't have an active enforcement regimen. And if we are going to require, and I fully support the new policy, but I agree with Mr. Nunez's point, if we're going to ask him to pay $900 in fees to be in compliance, then it seems reasonable that we should take some affirmative step to enforce the policy.
We can do periodic enforcement with the Sheriff's Department as well as different times of the year with code enforcement after hours.
Yeah,
Sure.
just for us to proactively think about it at some point during the year.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. If we could just periodically inspect the trucks, not let them know when, particularly the closer we get to July 4th or whatever. But I definitely sympathize with Mr. Nunez on this. But like with anything else, for everybody else that's here, there's a lot of things that do go wrong in our city, and unfortunately, they go unreported. So if you have an opportunity or you witness something that you think is wrong, feel free to pick up the phone, contact code enforcement, and let us decide whether it's a code violation or not. And especially with these ice cream trucks, we're trying to protect our children. And if you think that there's illegal activity in a ice cream truck, please don't hesitate to call code enforcement or the sheriff, especially if it's illegal activity that you're observing. So, thank you. So with that, we need to, Councilwoman Rigby?
I was just going to say, I think with the direction to staff to tighten up a couple of things, I'm good to move that we accept C5. And I want to say thank you to Mr. Nunez for following through on this and the many discussions that you've had with council and staff and in your input on this. So thank you.
Councilman Franklin.
I was going to ask, does code enforcement accept information via email from citizens?
Yes.
Do we? And what is the email address? Does anybody know?
I'm not sure I know it offhand. If anything you send to info@cityofvista.com will be directed to the appropriate department.
Okay.
And then on our website, there are more specific information.
So if a citizen observes a vehicle without the correct decal, or if you do, you pass them while you're going about your transactions, maybe a cell phone picture, text it to info@cityofvista.com, or any other code violation. I'm glad to know that that's available. It's good.
Are you seconding? I second. And with that, I would also like to thank Mr. Nunez for stepping forward. And I understand your plight, following the laws and being a good business person in our community, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, we always have to, I'm in business for myself, and we always have to deal with those people that don't follow the rules. But eventually people do recognize people like yourself, so thank you for doing that. Please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, at this time I'd like to start our discussion items, D1. So I'll have the Director of Community Development and Engineering, John Connolly, please introduce the item for us.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. With me tonight is Sam Hassanen, our traffic engineer, and he'll be making the presentation. Do you have
Good evening.
Good evening.
So our item tonight is access prohibition on Cypress Drive at South Santa Fe Avenue. And the background on this is that the residents expressed concern at a city council meeting with a proposed multifamily development project that it would add more traffic to Cypress Drive, which already experiences a shortcut in traffic. At the time, the city council directed staff to develop a policy to prohibit access on public streets. Which staff came back to council, and recently the city council adopted council policy 600-12 to establish a procedure for dealing with the access prohibition on public streets. So in accordance with the new council policy, staff evaluated Cypress Drive for access prohibition at South Santa Fe Avenue and found that it met the criteria. One of the criteria is consulting with the fire department, and the fire department required that emergency access from South Santa Fe Avenue be maintained through the existing outgoing right turn only lane. So, which means basically a partial access prohibition or a partial closure at South Santa Fe. So left turns from Cypress Drive onto South Santa Fe Avenue were prohibited in 1997. And according to counts we've done, the southbound traffic, the majority of it at least, was eliminated by that left turn prohibition. Actually, what that means basically is that prohibiting the access from South Santa Fe onto Cypress would eliminate the shortcut in traffic in the other direction. And this actually shows up in the traffic volumes. So currently there's 1,361 vehicles per day going northbound, and that's mostly the vehicles making a right turn from South Santa Fe Avenue onto Cypress. And the other direction is only 208 vehicles per day because the left turn is onto South Santa Fe is prohibited, so that's just local traffic, basically. We also had 3 collisions in the past 5 years along the stretch of Cypress between South Santa Fe and Monte Vista Drive. This is kind of an overall aerial photo of the area, so that shows South Santa Fe Avenue and the proposed access prohibition. Basically, it's an entry access prohibition at South Santa Fe. So the next step in the process after meeting the initial criteria is for a petition to be submitted by the residents. And staff determined that the properties that would be affected by the access prohibition are the properties on Cypress between South Santa Fe Avenue and Monte Vista Drive. And the residents submitted the petition. Staff evaluated the petition and found that 77% of the affected properties signed it in support of the access prohibition, and that exceeds the 75% threshold specified in the council policy. This is a map of the affected properties, all the ones highlighted in yellow along that segment of Cypress Drive. So the recommendation, staff recommendation tonight is to approve entry access prohibition on Cypress Drive at South Santa Fe Avenue.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rigby. Oh, we got a few. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with Windus Apashan.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you all for listening to me and our neighbors. There's 40 houses on that street, and when you consider that there's 1,361 cars going on that per day, an average of that, you can imagine what we are experiencing. And I wanted to thank the traffic department for being so quick. We have a problem with the one dirt lot that people were driving up the hill, and I requested a fence to be put up, which has been put up. It's already been hit once in the 4 weeks that it's been up from someone not seeing it, but that was done. And I also recommended that the bus stop be moved from in front of Sunrise Cafe over to where they're going to block it off and put a bench in, and that was done. So I just really appreciate how much you have listened to us and realized the depth of the danger that we feel on that street. And there's been another problem that's happened in the last couple of weeks where we have kids racing at night, banking on the hills on the turns because I guess it's fun. And we can't get down there in time to find out who they are, and it's become a nightly issue. So the access and they're going in that direction. So the access prohibition would be just a wonderful thing for our neighborhood. And after living there 32 years, we really could use it to be a little bit quieter than it's become. So I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for all the help that you've given us.
Thank you. Sean Kennington. And if you could, when you come up, just state your name and address, just for the record, please.
Sean didn't mark to talk. I'm his brother, Sheldon. I did mark to talk.
Yeah, just name and address.
It's 1254 Cypress Drive, Sheldon, Kennington.
Okay.
Sean is here. He walks the street every day to go to the bus stop, and the cars zip by him. It's very dangerous. He's handicapped. The main problem is the speed, not the quantity of the cars. A little bit of history. My sister, pulling out from 1240 10, 15 years ago, was hit by a teenager, and the insurance investigator estimated that it was going 55 miles an hour.
Wow.
And the street that we were at, that's insane. In the last few weeks, I've been nearly hit 3 times pulling out of our driveway because there's only 100 feet from our driveway, the curve, and the visual, it just doesn't work. We've been there 40 years, and like I said, it's not the quantity, it's the speed, and you can see the tire marks that go up with the trucks use that go up and down slopes like they're skateboarders. I appreciate the things that you've done, moving that, well, that's already been brought up. blocking it for right traffic only at Cypress didn't do that much help. When the police are there every 3 months, they get a bunch of police there, they write so many tickets, people go there, turn left anyway. So it may help a little bit, but it didn't help a lot. But blocking the incoming traffic would really help. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sharon Seymour.
Hi, I'm Sharon Seymour, 1210 Cypress Drive. I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here and to have this adopted, hopefully adopted for our street. Just getting here tonight, 10 cars came, and I couldn't get out of my driveway. 10 cars came down the hill, and what Windus and Sheldon were talking about as far as the cars banking off, that's my property, and it's my curve, and the cars are going northbound, which by eliminating the northbound traffic from Santa Fe is going to hopefully stop that. But it's a nightly occurrence of speeding at the bottom of our driveway and banking on our slope. And when you talk about 3 collisions reported, there's actually many, many more collisions than that just aren't reported. They crash their car and don't report it. And then, of course, the near misses that Sheldon talked about are almost daily. My dad's 80 years old, and he can't get out of our driveway. It's very scary. So I just want to thank you for adopting the council policy to allow us to do this. And I'm thankful that Cypress met all the criteria. And because they met the criteria set forth by the city, we hope that you would please approve this tonight for the safety of all of us who live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman or Councilwoman Rigby.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I thought we had more speakers. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. I know that the letter was sent out to all the residents on Cypress Drive, and I know that some of the residents are renters, not owners. So were the owners also notified? I'm assuming the letters were sent to the registered owner of the property?
That's correct. The letters went to the property owners, or notices.
Okay. And from the 23% that we didn't hear back from or that did not support the petition, have we heard back from them in any way, opposition or no position or anything? Do we have any comment from the 23%?
One resident attended the Traffic Commission meeting and spoke against the access prohibition.
Okay.
We also have something that was added to the packet.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That's from outside the street, but that's correct. There's another email that came in.
Right. I saw on the petition drive there were 2 that live on Cypress that said no, but we haven't heard from any of the others.
Yeah, it was only
Particularly?
the one property owner that attended the Traffic Commission meeting and spoke against the proposal.
And I think Mrs. Aposhian alluded to the lot when you go down Cypress, because I've been out there as a guest of Mrs. Aposhian, and I got to see what they're dealing with and the marks of the kids banking on the walls. That was just unbelievable to me to see that. But when you're going down Cypress to Santa Fe, and the left-hand turn has been illegal for a long time, but people are cutting across, and you can see here in the photograph, right by the red car, under that little red line, you can see almost a trail where the cars cut across that lot. Is that the lot that's now fenced in?
Correct. We put up a fence.
So we can't get that. Okay. And then the people who are just, the 1,300 people who are cruising that street, they're coming in from the other end and will be going out that way, or
I would say the vast majority, just based on the traffic volumes
or do
southbound.
they come in from Santa Fe?
Yes.
So I'm trying to figure out how, if we still leave it open on both ends, how it's really going to help with that traffic.
So we're only going to leave the right turn only out. The entry access would be completely prohibited. So from South Santa Fe, there would be no access.
Okay.
Only that existing right turn lane that comes out onto South Santa Fe, that's the only thing that would be left open. And from our traffic volume counts, it shows that the right turn only has been effective. We did counts in 2011 and 2014, and both showed only 200 cars a day going southbound, which is very low number, so versus the 1,400 going northbound. So it has shown that right turn only has been effective.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate Mrs. Aposhian, again, coming and speaking to us and the rest of you on Cypress. And I think that you have definitely done your due diligence and gone through everything that the city had asked you to go through. And with that, I would move that we accept D1 and allow approving the entry access prohibition on Cypress at South Santa Fe Drive.
Okay. I do have a question. Most of the emails were very supportive that I received, although I did get a couple with questions. And I think it's only fair to the public that we maybe address one of those questions. So I was wondering if Deputy Chief Jeff Hahn could come up, please. Mr. Hahn, as council members, you know, one of the things that we're entrusted in or have been elected to do is to try to keep our citizens safe. And so my question, my concern through constituents is, you know, how safe is this for us to close this street, and how does the fire department feel about this?
Initially, we looked at this with the traffic folks at the different ways that they could accomplish this and close it off. Cul-de-sacing was considered and some other things that we definitely opposed for the safety reason. And what they came up with actually was, I think, quite brilliant, because we're going to be able to circumvent that in an emergency, which will really not slow our responses into that area. And it still does allow for the residents to egress the area in both directions on Cypress Drive. So really met kind of all of our conditions for providing emergency access.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe the sheriff is probably in support of this as well, because there sounds like there's some illegal activity that's going on, so maybe we'll help curb that. So thank you. So we have a first and a second. Without any further comment or questions, time to vote. Congratulations. We do have another discussion item, D2. I'll have the City Manager, Patrick Johnson, present this item.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. The purpose of the budget overview this evening is to review the larger components of the general fund budget.
Laura Johnson. Laura Johnson, you're going to do, okay.
I'm going to take care of it. But we do have Assistant City Manager Ali Zimmerman and Management Analyst Laura Johnson here as well. So as I was mentioning, the purpose of this budget overview is to look at the larger components of the general fund budget more at a macro level. Next month on May 12th, we will provide you with your actual draft budgets and look at more of the details. But we wanted to give you an overview at this time. And before we get started, I'd like to thank all the individual departments that have worked since September, working on their budgets, bringing in the revenues, as well as keeping their expenditures in line. So I want to thank all the different departments that have budget exposure, as well as Laura Johnson, who's sitting there, who works countless nights, many extra hours, making sure that we have a very sound budget, as well as Ali Zimmerman and our Finance Director, Dale Nielsen. And as it concerns Dale Nielsen, I have some good news and some bad news, and that is Dale is going to be retiring after 28 years of working for the city in the finance department, and Dale's going to retire, I believe it's August 23rd, not a day later, but he's going to be able to spend some time with his wife, Lori, and so we're very happy for Dale, but we are going to miss him and the wisdom and the intelligence that he brings to finance. He's been a rock star in finance, and whenever you have a question, Dale knows the answer, whether it's in finance or whether it's in traffic engineering. He's also our the staff's laughing because he's also our traffic design engineer on a limited, very limited basis. But we want to say thank you to Dale for everything he's done. He's not leaving yet, but I wanted to notify you that he is planning on retiring. So the order of the presentation tonight, we're going to go over the revenues and expenditures, and then we'll review the programs that the general fund subsidizes, and then we're going to discuss the recreational programs that were cut in 2010 and 11 as a result of the recessionary times. And then we'll end with our accomplishments as well as the City Council's goals and take any direction that you have. So if you have any questions as we go forward, just please interrupt me and let me know. So in terms of revenues, local economy, we've all seen the improvement that's occurred, particularly over the last 3 years. Unemployment rates are now below 5% in Vista. We've got increased housing prices. Property taxes are stable for the second year in a row, that is, and we have seen continued increases in sales tax, which has been very beneficial. And so in terms of the revenues, the total general fund revenues for the estimated general fund revenues, I should say, for the coming fiscal year in 2015-16 are estimated to be at $68.6 million. And the majority of the revenues come from the sources that you see on your screen. I'll just review a few of the major ones, and that is property tax at $18.9 million. Property tax revenues have increased, as I said. They've stabilized. Housing prices are up, and we benefit from that. We're looking at about a 5.5% increase over the 2014-15 year. In terms of the next item on there is sales tax. We're looking at $16.27 million in sales tax revenue. This number excludes Proposition L, and there's an increased consumer confidence that we've experienced over the last 3 years, but also it's businesses that have come to Vista in the last few years, particularly over the last 4 years, that have helped increase our sales tax numbers. The highest performing areas in sales tax were auto sales and retail, and sales taxes estimated to be 5.7% over the 14-15 year numbers. Transient occupancy tax is next. This is typically what we call our hotel tax, and that's at $1.1 million. And now that the two newer hotels, the Hyatt and the Marriott, have been stable for the last few years in terms of having their business clients in order, we're looking at continued stabilization of that revenue at $1.1 million. And then franchise fees at $3.1 million. This is also stable, and we get franchise fees from SDG&E. We get them from EDCO, which is our waste hauler, as well as all of our cable providers. Going to Proposition L and talking about that, we're looking at estimating Proposition L at $7.36 million. And the chart there, I know it's hard to read on the screen, but Proposition L, we get about 46% of the general sales tax revenue, because Proposition L taxes are a transaction and use tax, meaning if you buy a product in Vista, we get the half-cent sales tax. However, if you buy something in Vista and it's delivered elsewhere, we don't get the Proposition L portion of that tax. So it trends at about 46%. And in forecasting Prop L at a 2% modest increase per year will enable the revenue that's generated from it will be able to pay the debt service through 2036-37. In addition, with Prop L also funds $1.2 million within the fire department for employees. And if you see the blue line on your screen there, you can see that Prop L will have the ability to fund that $1.2 million through 2020-21. And last year, when we had this budget overview, it was 2019-20, and sales taxes have continued to increase. So if sales tax continues as well as Prop L, I wouldn't think it's impossible to see that move up another year or two in the future. So there's no worry right now with the $1.2 million for fire salaries. Are there any questions on general revenues in terms of what's happened? Okay. We'll move on to expenditures. And the major department expenditures are going to be shown on your screen shortly, and for the general fund include general government, which is at $7.5 million, public safety, which is $40 million, community development at $6.5 million, public works at $3.1 million, and community services at $5.3 million, for a total of $62.56 million. And again, this excludes Proposition L. So in total, with Prop L, we have about $70.2 million on the expense side in the budget. There are a few areas where we have little to no control over. They're the non-discretionary items. One is the contract for law enforcement with the Sheriff's Department. We are right now in year 3 out of 5 in our contract with the Sheriff's Department. The estimated costs for Sheriff Services for 15-16 are $19.5 million. This is our largest contract, but we still believe it's the most cost-effective way to provide services, law enforcement services in the community, due to the fact that the Sheriff's capabilities are very robust. Healthcare is another area that continues to go up year after year. And this year, we don't have our premium increases from the providers yet. We typically get that in June and July, but we're estimating a 12% increase over the 14-15 numbers. And typically, it's come in somewhere between 8 and 15%, so we think 12 is the right number to at least budget for. The next item is the Public Employees Retirement System, which we refer to as PERS. And last year, the board at PERS adopted a new actuarial assumption study, and that is they looked at two issues. One, that retirees are living longer, and two, they want to have long-term pension sustainability, which I think all of you support as well. And the updated rates are going to be phased in over a 5-year period of time starting in 16-17. And we're looking at rates increasing anywhere between 6 and 9% for both miscellaneous and public safety. Currently, for the miscellaneous group, the city pays about 24% for the PERS cost, and for the safety group, it's 26.75%. And something that I'd like to commend the City Council with your year-end fund balance. You ended up paying $4.5 million to the PERS Safety Side Fund, and we initiated that before the end of last calendar year, which saved about 9 to 10% off of the PERS Safety Fund. So our liability was, or the cost that we pay to PERS was trending at the 35% level, and now it's at 26%. So that's very good, and it saved us money over time. In addition, there's new tiers for PERS. So newer members that come into the system have a lower tier, which is a lower rate that the city ends up paying. And so over time, as our workforce changes out, we should see some benefits from that. Last on there is the minimum wage increase, and recent legislation in California increased minimum wage by $1 in July 2014, and in July 2016 it goes up another, or January 2016 I should say, it goes up another $1. And we have a lot of temporary and part-time workers in the city, typically in the recreation fields, at the Wave Water Park, and this is going to affect us on a year-over-year basis by about $150,000. It's not just the minimum wage employees, but those that are close to minimum wage and other salary categories also go up at the same time. So it's a hit to the city by about $150,000. Any questions on expenditures as we move right along?
I have a question.
Yes.
Capital outlays, what does that exactly cover? And are we getting that detailed right now?
You can get as detailed as you want. Yeah. So capital outlay, you want to take it, Laura?
We have capital outlay of almost $1.4 million. All of that is covered by reserves that we saved. The bigger items on that are 2 pumper trucks for the fire department. We've also got some utility vehicles that Public Works uses that we're replacing.
So on capital outlay, we have reserve funds for a lot of items, specifically vehicles, and we set aside for those and purchase when necessary. I should point out that we don't, if a vehicle's been saved up enough money for it, we don't just go out and purchase a new vehicle. We use the vehicle until we get the life expectancy out of it.
So where do we find the, like, I know one of our goals as a council was to continue to improve roads and that. I mean, where do we?
So there's a number of funding sources that go towards roads. We have gas tax, we have street maintenance fee, and then we also have Transnet funds, as well as other grant opportunities that we can take advantage of.
And the majority of that is in the CIP budget, which you'll see separately next month.
Okay, great. Just for clarification.
I did have one question, just for clarification for myself. Well, we were talking about the Prop L funds, and you mentioned that Prop L expense for the fire department was a little over $1 million.
1.2.
1.2 million. Could you reiterate for me? I must have missed it. The other or the rest of the money there for Prop L transfers out?
Didn't miss it. I didn't mention it.
Okay, thank you.
What that other money goes towards is the debt service.
Okay.
So we have the debt service that we bonded for to build all these projects. And so we pay off the debt service, and then we put an additional $1.2 million towards the fire salaries.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Glad it wasn't me.
Okay, on to subsidized programs, and there are several programs that require general fund subsidies. And the council 3 years ago set subsidy limits for each of the subsidy items, and I'll review those with you. The first area is the senior nutrition program. It's got an estimated subsidy at this point in time in the budget of $294,000. And most of you are familiar with the senior nutrition. I know all of you are familiar, but for members of the audience, the senior nutrition program provides funding for meal services. We have contracts with 2 outside agencies, City of Encinitas, City of San Marcos, that we provide meals for, as well as we get general revenue from participant donations. And on a daily average, we do 86 congregate meals at the senior center. We deliver 48 home meals, and we provide 30 one-way trips for lunch participants to and from the senior center. And so 3 years ago, the City Council determined that the subsidy level that was acceptable was $275,000. And I mentioned that they're at $294,000 at this point in time, and staff is working to bring that budget projection into the acceptable threshold. I do want to mention another employee change at this time, and we have Bill Crane, who's been a long-term employee for the city, and Bill is our senior center manager, and Bill will be leaving us in the next couple weeks for another opportunity, and so we're going to be recruiting internally for that position. So we're going to be losing Bill Crane shortly, but Bill's been in a variety of capacities within the city, from the city manager's office to recreation to economic development. He's done a great job, so we're really going to miss him. The second subsidy line item there is lighting landscaping, and this is the what we refer to as the LLMD district. It's got a subsidy of $273,000, and the LLMD provides for arterial and residential street lighting, traffic signals, tree trimming, and the funding that we receive is on property assessments that are on the property tax roll. So we will continue to identify opportunities to reduce the subsidy to the general fund. And 2 years ago, through a grant fund, we were able to purchase 800 street lights and a little over 300 yellow LED lights, which saved a considerable amount of money. And as a result of your action this evening, we're going to be purchasing 2,200 residential street lights that are going to be now LED, which are going to provide a better light to residences, and it's going to save over $100,000 a year. So we're always looking at ways. We think that savings with the LED lights will take this subsidy level down from 273 to a much lower number. But until those lights are in, until we see where we're at in terms of our SDG&E payments, we don't want to quote anything. Yes.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Jumping back one program to the senior nutrition program, do we receive 100% of the cost, the meals that we provide to Encinitas and San Marcos? Do we receive 100% cost recovery?
No, we
on those
don't.
meals?
No. We typically, I think the new contract price is about $5.75 a meal, and it costs us a little over $7 to provide the meals, both internally and to outside sources.
And have we asked Encinitas and San Marcos to pay the full cost?
We have incrementally increased the cost almost on a year-by-year basis by a quarter a year to be able to get them up to speed or get them up to our level at some point in time. Right now, San Marcos is out to bid for their senior center nutrition side of the house, and we won't know if we're awarded that contract until later this week.
Would we, if we lost that contract, would we lose efficiencies that would drive our costs up?
Absolutely. If we lose that contract with San Marcos, we will have to, and we've already put plans in place, or we have plans in case we need them, we'll have to look at how we deliver services and make some changes. Yeah, we rely on those two contracts, both Encinitas and San Marcos, to help fund our nutrition side of the program.
And then I wanted to reiterate on the next program what I had said to you in our previous meeting about it. that I think that it should be our 10-year goal. We have a lighting and landscape maintenance special district, which covers the entire city. There's a special district for every citizen of the city that has residential lighting on their own street, and they pay about $15 for that privilege. Isn't that right?
About $11.
$11. And then for the individual that lives on a street without residential lighting, they still pay into the lighting special district. Those funds are segregated for our major arterial roadways like Melrose and Civic Center. So we're all paying a special assessment for the financing of lighting of our major roadways that we all use, which is an important point because Turco did a report that said we were charging people for street lighting who didn't have lights on their street, which I was very upset about until I learned the truth on that. But the point I wanted to make is I believe that we should have a 10-year plan to eliminate that special district for landscaping and street lighting, because I think it's an inherent function of city government for us to maintain the landscaping in the medians and to light our major roadways. The fact that we have to have a special additional tax to accomplish that, to me, is a sign that at some point in the past we were short of funds and we looked for a new means of achieving those funds. And I recognize the budget realities, and so I'm not suggesting to the council that we should find a way to do it this year. But I am suggesting that we should have a 10-year plan to make that a part of our general fund expenditure without a special tax in addition to property tax and sales tax. So just a general thought on that.
And for clarification, we call them, let's say, Tier 1 benefits. Typically, a single-family residential property that may not have street lights on their street, but pays into it. They pay about $5.61 for the lighting component citywide, and they pay approximately $5 for the tree trimming as well as the traffic signals. So it's about $11 per single-family property that is charged.
And those are the services that are essentially provided to every resident of the city.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Councilman Campbell?
Just a quick question for the city manager to clarify, for not only the council but for the public as well. Could you remind us how much of every dollar in property tax that someone pays, how much of that the city gets, and then how much of every dollar in sales tax that's paid that the city gets on that?
Sure. In terms of property tax, the city receives a little over 14 cents on the dollar. So I think it's close, it's maybe 14.8%. And in terms of sales tax, it's 1 cent. So when somebody pays, and we get the half-cent sales tax, so it's 1.5 for purchases in Vista. But yeah, certainly when somebody's paying $100 worth of property taxes, the city's getting a little less than $15. All right, next up on the general fund subsidies is the Wave Water Park. And as you know, the Wave provides pool, water slide, surf features, and is open during the summer months for the public. We have swim camps, lap swim, a junior lifeguard program as well. And we hire over 150, typically youth or college-aged kids that work there. Last year, the Wave had over 100,000 patrons for the second time in a year. And the pool is used year-round by the Vista Unified School District for their water polo teams. The general fund subsidy at the Wave can fluctuate depending on weather, as we've seen for the past 4 years. We've had some really good years lately. The council set the maximum subsidy for the Wave at $400,000. And this year, the Wave is coming in at about $387,000. I got to give credit, the Wave staff is continually looking for revenue strategies, new ways to generate revenue at the Wave, and so they typically also come in lower than what their estimated subsidy level is. One of the things that set the Wave back in particular is some increase to our insurance costs as well as minimum wage. We're hopeful to have the subsidy level a lot lower at this point in time, considering that we paid off the Wave Water Park bonds early last year. but the minimum wage and some insurance issues has affected the wave. The last program that's listed there is Cultural Arts, and this is primarily the programs at the Moonlight as well as our AVO rental program that is coming up. The estimated subsidies at $240,000, and all of us can agree. We've all been to the Wave, we've been to the Moonlight. They both serve as great tourist attractions and help make Vista more well-rounded in terms of what we can offer to our residents. We're also extremely fortunate to have the Moonlight Cultural Foundation, a part of our city family, and year over year they contribute more than $300,000 a year to offset the subsidy to the city. So we're very fortunate, and there's a lot of gratitude that goes to the Moonlight Cultural Foundation. The goal for the City Council for the maximum subsidy was $200,000, and as it shows there, it's currently at $240,000. And many of you may remember at this point last year, they were above the subsidy threshold. However, right now they're still selling season tickets and the summer season hasn't kicked off. And so like last year, they were under their subsidy, even though the estimated subsidy at this point in time was higher. So we feel very strongly that they'll make the necessary changes as well as have season ticket sales come in to the point where we'll be under the $200,000 subsidy at the end of the year. And the last item to discuss in terms of subsidies or recreation, I should say, is the rec programs. And last year, during the budget discussion, Councilwoman Rigby requested that the City Council review the recreation programs that were cut in 2010 and 11. And there were 28 programs that were eliminated back then. And the city at the time had a threshold that a program had to receive at least 70% of the revenue to continue forward. So that being said, the city would not subsidize a program more than 30% of the cost of the program. And so, like I said, 28 programs were eliminated. A number of these programs, and I'll go through them briefly and then take your comments and questions, but a number of these programs are already offered in the private sector. And so we felt that somebody else was able to offer these programs for the most part. But let me review these. And I will say also that any changes that we want to make going forward would have to go back and evaluate the need for staffing and how we'd implement those programs. So any direction that you want to provide tonight, we'll take back and evaluate it and come back on May 12th with information for you. So the first screen there is preschool classes. The items in yellow are the ones that we did not cut. They're the ones that remain in effect. You can see kindergarten readiness is at 83% self-sufficiency, but at the time, the enrichment classes and the toddler drop-ins were significantly less than 70%. And the breakfast with Santa was a large cost to the city, as well as teen events. The next one is youth classes, and tennis was the one that we kept. It maintained that 70% self-sufficiency level. But you can see going through gymnastics, ballet, karate, different types of karate, hip-hop dance, ballet for mommy and me, dance and cheer, as well as wonders, science, and math. Most of those programs are offered by the private sector. And in terms of revenue, they fell short by about $6,500 to anywhere up to $12,500. So the self-sufficiency wasn't met for those classes. In terms of youth sports, we kept basketball. We brought back in 2013 flag football and girls volleyball, and they're currently meeting the self-sufficiency threshold. But indoor soccer, which was played in the gym, as well as girl volleyball camps, preschool sports, and basketball camps, did not come close to the self-sufficiency levels. And then youth day camp, the travel, explorers, and sports programs were kept. They were very popular. But the specialty, the spring, the superstars, and the holiday programs were not, because their self-sufficiency levels were well under the 70% threshold. And the last slide for this is adult sports and adult classes. So softball was well above the threshold, but basketball was well below. That was cut. And then Zumba was well above, but we eliminated clogging, Dancing with the Stars, Tai Chi, oil painting, Zumba Gold, and Zumba Atomic, which I'm not sure really what that is, but it's an interesting name. So they did not meet the self-sufficiency levels. They were anywhere from 45 to 11%. But those are the classes. There's 28 that we cut. And like I said, we brought back girls volleyball and flag football because there was a demand. People were coming to us asking for those, and there was a large number of people that wanted to do that. But in terms of the other classes, we have not had that demand. So.
I thank you for providing this information. I was just going to ask, there are a lot of classes that were eliminated, and I understand being Parks and Rec, this is something that we talked about for a long time, the threshold that we needed to meet. But you said you haven't had anybody request these classes. Was there any pushback from eliminating these classes at all?
I would say there's not been a major demand to bring back those classes. Obviously, at the time, there was some pushback because people were disappointed the classes were eliminated. Right. But and Bill Fortmuller's here, and I'm not sure if there's been a major demand in any of their areas for any particular classes to come back.
And also, Mr. Fortmuller, have we talked at all about badminton?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're not using the B word, are we?
Sorry. We've been talking about badminton for years here. So
when we made the cutbacks, we would get calls, and we directed the people to the private sectors and the private businesses. So I think their needs were met. And we even tried to offer a program where the instructor could rent our space, but we'd still be recovering 70%. But there wasn't enough profit in it for them because of the costs that we had to absorb. Badminton, we haven't really, other than your inquiry, about 2 years ago, we haven't had any other requests.
That same group keeps asking me, but it's the same group.
I know there's Rob, you can help me, in Escondido, there's one night, I think they have a gym, and they get maybe 20 people. We'd have to look at the class, figure out, it'd be about $2,000 for the striping and get the netting and everything, and then we'd have to look at the hours involved and break out what our break-even point or our 70% would be, how many people we'd need to get each time to allow it. But we can still look, we've been developing costs, but we haven't really had an onslaught of requests for it.
Okay. I keep asking, they keep asking, so I'll keep asking. Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Councilman Franklin?
In the high school gyms, some of these programs?
No, basically, well, we do, actually not in the high school gyms, where we use the middle school gyms for some of our youth basketball. Most of our classes would be over in the Jim Porter Recreation Center, and then with the newly acquired Linda Rhodes Recreation Center at the Vapid campus, we'll be offering programs there.
With our reciprocity agreement with the schools, we don't have to write a check or expend funds to use these facilities, is that right?
That's correct.
Correct.
So how come we can't offer the facilities to, you said we had to charge rent.
Well,
we offered to basically rent the facilities.
By rent, we're trying to recover our hourly cost of operation, all of our, the allocated costs, the direct costs, the indirect costs. We'd break that out by the hour, and then that, per the council direction, we at the time were told we needed to recover 70% of those total costs.
We have employees that have to monitor those facilities.
Right. Employees and the maintenance, lighting.
So we do have to pay those costs.
Oh,
yes?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think what you're referring to is, well, hey, if we have a reciprocal agreement, the facility is free to us. But keep in mind with that reciprocal agreement, it's a little bit lopsided right now. And we're really only
out of our favor.
Yeah, out of our favor. We're using it about 200 hours a year. The school district's probably at about 1,200 hours a year. So we're paying for facilities support, specifically the wave, in terms of heating the pool and keep maintaining the facility to where it's costing us to do that.
Yeah.
So.
And their gymnasiums are not that accessible to us. I mean, we struggle to get time for our youth basketball program. They have a lot of programs, so it's not like there's open hours that we can utilize.
What does it cost us for an hour, or for 2 or 3, or for 3 to rent a gym?
It's $105 an hour to rent gymnasium space. One other option we have is we also have a separate agreement with Guahomie Park Academy, where they utilize our sports park during the day for their classes, and we're able to utilize their gymnasium as well as their theater.
Right.
So we've been
But again, the time, it's not, it's very limited, the access we have. Because of their programs. Their programs have priority, and the school district have priority, and then we get second in line. Mm-hmm. And as Rob can testify, it's a struggle to get enough space for all of our programs.
Was that the cost that we offered to pass through, at cost, or In other words, if there was a private operator that wanted to provide any of these classes, but they needed a place to do it, we offered them, and we offered them at our cost?
We have a fee schedule. We go to the council every November with fees, and those, basically the fees are calculated, it's at our cost. Yeah, we're basically recovering 100% of our costs.
Yeah.
And that includes, insurance, it includes maintenance, staff time, and any costs associated with the operation of the building, we would pass through to the user.
Yeah.
At a 70% recovery.
My real question, what I'm getting at is, was there an opportunity there for a public-private partnership where we don't collect the fees from the program participants, but the private company that would do a dance class, for instance, would collect the fees to pay for the space, and we could make that facility accessible to them?
So we had that private-public partnership. So anything you see in here, gymnastics, ballet, karate, clogging, we weren't teaching the class. It was a private instructor coming in,
Okay.
but there was a rental fee for the facility.
I see.
And it was, when we went to the 70% recovery, the fee was too expensive for them to operate the class on our facilities and make a profit.
Interesting. Thank you.
And maybe, Mr. Fortmuller, when looking at other cities that we've surveyed on what their self-sufficiency percentage is, it's somewhere between 55 and 70. Is that correct?
Right, and they usually are, with the exception of La Mesa, which is 60% of all costs, where we're 70% of all costs. Most of the other cities are between 50 and 60%, but just of direct costs. Usually for youth, it's 50 to 60%, and usually 100% for adult costs.
Okay.
So I have a question. The kindergarten readiness. So I see that it's at 83%, which meets our threshold, and it looks like you have 180 participants on an annual basis. My concern with that is that the school district has started all these kindergarten readiness programs and is getting funding for that, and it just seems like something we probably shouldn't be spending our money on. We're not losing a whole lot, but maybe we can use that money for something else, or just.
Well, our program's a little bit different. It's like two mornings, or like three. Yeah, different age group. It's not as extensive a program as the school district offers, and it's like a couple hours, maybe 2 days a week in the morning, and it's kind of like
it's not taking the place of a pre-K class like some of the school district facilities are offering,
or even what's in the private preschools. It's kind of more like a mommy and me opportunity to engage with the kids in a social setting.
Okay.
I believe the video that's online that promotes the city has a little snippet from the kindergarten readiness class in it, and it's nothing like a pre-K class, I would say that.
Okay. And then I have, is the Explorers, like, that's not the Fire Explorers, right? That's something else?
No, that's the Explorers Day Camp. They go out and do a variety of field trips to different areas and different experiences.
Okay.
Where Rob would say that's Rob Anderson, our manager of Recreation Service, could probably give a little better description for you.
Yes, the Explorers is more your traditional day camp. They focus in on a little arts and crafts, a field trip a week, and things of that nature.
Okay. And then the sports under Youth Day Camp, just all kinds of sports?
Correct. A variety of sports each week.
Okay, so we are proposing to keep those, or have kept those in the past?
Kept those, correct.
Yeah.
They met the subsidy level.
Looks like we have good participation in those.
And those numbers are back in 2010-11 when we reduced the other camps. Most of those people moved up into the 3 top camps, so those numbers exceeded the 70%.
Okay.
One more request. Could we see this, could you, at some future opportunity, provide to us the remaining programs? Could you update the most recent fiscal year column?
Absolutely.
Sure, definitely.
Because I do notice that there's one lump sum that was divided evenly in 4 different categories amongst all these classes. So it seems probable that the costs were apportioned in a fashion that may not have reflected the actual cost of each class. You see what I'm saying? Like for all the youth classes, the cost of each class, regardless of what type of class it was identical. So,
And that's the
maybe that's because it was an identical number of
and that
meetings.
goes back to the fee that is charged.
Right.
Allocated cost, so it's going to be the same.
Right.
But if somebody's using the rec center for 1 hour,
right,
twice a week.
So all these classes had the exact same amount of use of the facilities, and therefore the cost was the same
Right,
for each of
based
them.
on like an hourly, if it was an hourly class. And a lot of the allocated costs, we broke out evenly among our programs.
That's what I was getting at, is there must have been some costs that remained, and therefore with fewer classes to divide them out amongst, it must have driven that number up and pushed the sufficiency number down for the remaining classes. Does that make sense?
Yes, but at the same time, we eliminated 6 full-time positions, and so that dropped the cost significantly. It was spread out over the programs, and we've also done we've gotten leaner and more efficient in our operation, and we've also taken some of the programs out of the recreation budget that were like a high subsidy level of 4th of July, some Highland Games, some of the and put them under the admin budget. So it's a better reflection on Rob's budget as far as what the actual costs are to the program.
Well, if you wouldn't mind putting our most recent budget year and for the remaining ones, it's only a half dozen. That would be, I think, helpful.
No problems.
I have a question for Mr. Anderson. On the tennis class, is that mostly adults or is that children, or both?
It's a mix of we have adult tennis and we have the youth.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Looks like we've lost one of our council members. We're still got a quorum, though.
She's listening.
We just need to...
Well, I've got a few more.
Oh, you still got a few more things?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
We're just receiving anyways, right?
We're good with the subsidy levels. Just moving on to accomplishments, we continue to have accomplishments, and the city staff works very hard to provide services to the public, and I just wanted to review a few of them that are on the chart for you. Last year we celebrated our 52nd anniversary. The fire department, for the first time, responded to over 12,000 calls. It's a lot of calls running out of 6 stations. They do a great job there. Sheriff's Station responded to over 62,000 calls, and a number of those were deputy-initiated calls. Graffiti removal at 108,000 square feet. We have 2 dedicated graffiti removal street maintenance workers. They do a great job. Asphalt repairs at 41,000 square feet. Pothole repairs over 3,000. The third Vista Cares Business Walk, which I think a lot of you did, where we surveyed over 100 companies with the Chamber of Commerce. Senior Center delivered over 13,000 meals to homebound seniors over the course of the year. The disc golf course, which has been in existence for a few years, had over 17,000 rounds, and that's probably a very conservative number. And then Mary Poppins, the highest grossing and attended production in Moonlight history, which the city got a lot of acclaim for on our number one show. So number of accomplishments, and those are just a few of them. But in Exhibit 3, you have the list of the full accomplishments. And then to discuss your top priorities. And so for fiscal sustainability, this includes eliminating the structural deficit, which was done last year, and continuing to build the emergency reserve levels, which you've done. And over the last 3 years, you've gone from 10% to 16%, with your goal in the council policy of getting to 20%. And paying off the PERS Safety Side Fund, $4.5 million was significant. So thank you for taking that and having the fiscal restraints to do that with. Public safety, this includes maintaining current staffing levels and creating long-term efficiencies. And I didn't mention this, and it's not in the list there for accomplishments, but we have our lowest crime rate in history in Vista in 2014. And that's a credit to the Sheriff's Department, as well as the way law enforcement is going about their business and using crime analysts. And so it's a great accomplishment for the Sheriff's Department. They work very hard. The third one is decreasing blight and improving the image of Vista. We're trying to do that. Paseo Santa Fe is a large example. Phase 1 is coming along, as all of you have witnessed. And Phase 2 we're planning for. And so we're also looking at other areas throughout town, whether it's abandoned buildings. And in the coming year, we're going to get more strict with a lot of those properties that have been dilapidated for some time. Attracting revenue-generating businesses. This includes pursuing businesses not only for job growth, but also for revenue. And so we're actively doing that. And then continue to make road and street improvements. And obviously, you want to maintain your roadways. You want to see the entryways to the city improved. And I think as we've recently experienced with the overlay, as well as the slurry seal, Vista roads are in very good condition, at least the major arterials throughout town. I know a lot of you have received a lot of compliments. So engineering staff and public works staff's done a great job. And then the last one there is creating more youth sports and recreational opportunities. And you authorized $5.5 million worth of park development fees to be spent in this area. And so we're going to see 2 new skate parks coming on board, improvements throughout the park system to lighting, to the gazebos, to the play surfaces, shade sails, restrooms throughout all our parks. And so in the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be huge improvements at the existing park facilities. And so those are your priorities. Any questions on your priorities or what staff is doing through the budgeting process? And then the last slide there that you have is the, we're doing better financially. However, it's just a cautionary note that there has been 3 recessions in 25 years in the early 90s, early 2000s, and then the Great Recession that we experienced in 2007 and 2008. So I would recommend that we do as the bottom of the slide says in red font, and that is not to plan for the next inevitable recession would be a mistake. Set additional revenues aside and be ready for when the next downturn occurs. And again, you've done this with your emergency reserves. We do have PERS funds that are set aside in an emergency reserve as well, separate from the big reserve, as well as a structural deficit reserve. And it's very likely that in the next couple of years, we're going to see some sort of downturn. It may not be the Great Recession, but it's going to be a downturn at some point. And I applaud you for keeping that money in those accounts for when we need it. So that's it. You're going to receive your draft budget on May 12th, and you can get all the detailed questions answered. But happy to answer any questions that you have tonight.
I would like to well, I agree with you on that last slide as far as I think we need to continue to build up our reserves. I think a goal of 20% is a minimum that we should continue to move forward on. I do have a couple of things I want to mention here as far as what I've taken from the meeting. I think some direction to staff came from Councilman Franklin about more current budget numbers for the sports programs. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was asking to update these numbers so we can figure out where we've gone.
Right, using current, so if we can do that. Personally, and I think everybody would agree with this, if we can get Moonlight and senior nutrition back on track, well, not back on track, but closer to their numbers that we've targeted for them, that would be great. Anything else? Councilman Franklin?
I just wanted to follow up on the city manager's comments on the reserves. Can you give us a quick picture of where we're at and what our current plan is to add to our reserves?
Sure. So over the last 3 years in particular, we've added to the reserves using year-end fund balance. And fortunately, over those last 3 years, we've had some healthy year-end fund balances because we don't spend 100% of our budget. We're very cautious or careful about what we do spend, and so it gives the council the flexibility to utilize those funds. In the coming 2 years, I would assume, at least for this next year, from 14-15's year-end fund balance that you will be presented with in October, there will be a year-end fund balance that will be probably in the $4 million range. And so maybe one of the recommendations at that time, per your policy of what to do, you look at if there's a structural deficit, you look at putting money towards emergency reserves, PERS issues, and then roads and streets. That's per the policy. But that will be an area that will be a possible way to increase the emergency reserve funds from 16% to 17 or 18% at that time. And you're using those kind of one-time monies. They're from the budget, obviously, but one-time monies to be able to do that and not take away from operational or services that we provide the community.
Okay. Thanks. Any other direction to staff? Otherwise, I recommend we receive.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to move on to our public hearing. This is a public hearing to receive testimony regarding the CDGB Annual Action Plan. First, we'll hear from the staff report, then the public will have an opportunity to comment. Those wishing to speak should present their speaker slips to the city clerk. And when I call your name, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address and speak directly into the microphone for no longer than 3 minutes. Then it will be time for City Council to discuss the item. Once the public hearing is closed, there is no further opportunity for the public to address council. So the public hearing is now open. Housing and Redevelopment Director Meyer will go ahead and introduce the item.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and members of the council. With us this evening doing the presentation is Kathy Valdez, our program manager.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and members of the City Council. The purpose of today's item is to conduct a public hearing regarding the proposed Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2015-16. Last year, the city adopted the 2014 to 2018 Consolidated Plan, which identifies overall housing and community development goals for the 5-year period. Activities fall under the HUD designated categories to provide decent housing, provide a suitable living environment, expand economic opportunity, and to affirmatively further fair housing. The city's 2015 annual plan outlines the city's spending plan and activities for the coming program year. CDBG funds will be used for debt service obligations, capital projects, administration of the housing programs, as well as our fair housing services, and then public services. Our annual allocation will be $780,716. This is about an 8.5% reduction from our current funding. The annual debt service payment for fiscal year 15-16 is approximately $428,000. In 1999, the city utilized a HUD Section 108 loan to assist in financing the highly successful Vista Village and Transit Center. The loan is to be repaid with future CDBG allocations and will be fully repaid in 2017. Staff recommends using capital funds for facility and infrastructure improvement projects. Funds will be used to improve access to or to rehabilitate facilities used by low and moderate income individuals. Under program guidelines, a maximum of 20% of our allocation may be used for administration and a maximum of 15% may be used for public services. Staff is recommending utilizing the full 20%, again, to cover our fair housing services as well as our administration of CDBG and other housing programs, and also for the full 15% for public services. Contracts with public service recipients selected in 2014 included an option for a one-year renewal. That renewal was at the discretion of the city, dependent on funding availability and contract performance. The CDBG Advisory Committee and staff recommend extending contracts with the current subrecipients. Recommended funding levels, with the exception of Operation Hope, include a 10% reduction from the current funding level to reflect the city's reduced allocation. The city uses CDBG funds to cover its fair share obligation to the regional shelter network by directly funding Operation Hope. To ensure that the full amount of the city's contribution is available through CDBG, Operation Hope's funding level has been minimally reduced. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize and thank our CDBG Advisory Committee members. I know several of them are here in the audience. I'd like to ask them to stand up, please. Thank you. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer questions.
Okay, thank you for the committee members for doing this. Councilman Campbell.
Just a quick question, kind of looking forward into the future. Once the debt service on those loans are paid off, based on the limitations for administration and public services, where would those funds be available to go at that point?
They can be used for capital projects, which again can be infrastructure improvement, facility improvements. They can also go towards housing programs. Because we've had a limited amount of funding available, we haven't used it for that purpose recently.
Thank you.
Any other council members have questions for staff before I open it up to the public? Okay. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and call up Deborah Shriver.
Hello, Debbie Shriver. Work with North County Lifeline, who operates a program here in Vista at 200 Michigan Street. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to obviously encourage you to continue funding the CDBG program with Lifeline, which is our project outreach. It is a program designed to work with the Vista Unified School District families that are in jeopardy of being homeless or are homeless or living up double together, because we have found that obviously the children suffer when they become homeless. They move to other districts. They don't go to school. So this whole idea of this program is to work and assist with the families to keep them in the district, to keep them in the school so that the kids will continue to be in school, as well as helping these kids, provide them with vouchers for clothes, for food, some of your basic needs, as well as backpacks and school supplies and so on. So I just really wanted to thank you for the support that you've given us. Hopefully you will continue to assist us in this area, and just thank you very much for all that you help with us, is also within the Fair Housing Program. So thanks.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay, thanks.
Okay, I don't have any other speaker slips here. So what is the council's pleasure?
I'll move that we close the public hearing and that we adopt staff's recommendation to continue this plan for the next year. That's what we're doing, right? We're just continuing it for the next year. So.
Councilman Campbell?
That's on there from the last.
Oh, I thought I cleared it.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Good. Please vote. Congratulations to the organizations, and thank you for your service. Okay, I think ready for council remarks. So, who would like to go first? Council remarks?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. To save my voice, I'm going to forgo all the remarks I might otherwise have said tonight, except to say thank you to staff. As always, you do a great job for the city, and I appreciate it. I'm looking to ask my council colleagues if I could get someone to agree with me to bring back for a future agenda item a discussion on red light cameras.
I would agree with you on that.
Thank you. So in the future, we'll have that. Thank you very much. But
Councilman Franklin?
I just wanted to say that we discussed the new striping on Civic Center, and I'm pleased with the increased aesthetic element of the new striping plan. I think there was not only value in the bike lanes, but I took a chance on that idea, based on the idea it was going to really improve the visual appeal of the thoroughfare and increase the sort of aesthetic appeal of our city. And I think it did. I appreciate the staff advancing that idea. That's all I've got.
Councilman Campbell.
I have a few remarks this evening. First, I'd like to encourage my council colleagues next year to attend what they are planning on having next year, which is the Inside Law Enforcement event that I attended this past weekend at the San Diego Regional Training Center, which was put on by primarily the San Diego Police Department in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department. It was a well-attended event. It was about 4.5 hours long, but it was well worth the time to go do that. Sheriff Gore was there, as well as Chief Zimmerman from San Diego. Also, the city manager and I and several other community members went out to HMLA 369 on Camp Pendleton, took that tour. And then I also went to, for those of you that don't know, FedEx is building a ground facility in Oceanside. It's a 300,000 square foot plus facility that will be able to better serve North County, fewer trucks on the road for the amount of time instead of them having to drive up from San Diego. On another note, as the city's representative on the Regional Solid Waste Association Board, I just wanted to give the council a quick update on a couple of actions that we took at the last meeting. One is that, for information purposes, the disposal agreement with EDCO does have a rate freeze for the 15-16 year as part of that 20-year agreement. And the board also approved a 5-year agreement with Stericycle for the household hazardous waste disposal contract portion, with very minimal increases starting in years 2 and 3 and years 4 and 5 of that agreement. So that's all I have this evening.
Thank you for representing the city in those events. So congratulations again to the Spring 2015 Vista Leadership Academy. I think there's 1 or 2 of you still here. The next academy will take place in the fall, and please keep up to date on the website, and we will post it there, or our Vista newsletter as well. There are 3 events that are taking place this weekend. You know, prom is just right around the corner, so the Vista Library will be hosting a prom dress giveaway. The library has over 400 gently worn dresses available to any student who needs one. So if you're interested or you know someone that may be interested, you can call 760-643-5112 to register. So, also, Breeze Hill Elementary School is hosting a health and wellness fair from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. this Saturday. There will be kids' games, the San Diego Bloodmobile will be there, health booths, and a silent auction. The fair takes place in the school parking lot at 1111 Melrose Way. And finally, the Vista Chamber of Commerce is hosting their 2015 bike rodeo this weekend here at the Civic Center from 11 to 2 in the Alta Vista parking lot, right? And there will be a full bike rodeo with awards, information, and safety booths, and a bike show. You can bring your bike to the event. And unfortunately, I will be out of town this weekend, so I will be missing it. So I'll have to put my trike up, I guess. I will be attending a, I don't know, seminar, what have you, from Metropolitan Water District. So I'm going to learn where our water comes from. Obviously, that's a big issue in California. And
He said came from.
But anyways, I'm going to learn how the water gets here to us. And again, it's an important subject in our state, and I look forward to that trip. So I'll update you at our next meeting how that goes. City Manager?
Yeah, a couple items. Just want to let the public know that the city tomorrow night in the community room will be holding a skate park meeting with residents to get your concerns, your issues addressed in terms of what you'd like to see in the skate parks, the amenities, and it'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. And if you need more information, you can go to our website at cityofvista.com. Summer day camp registration begins on Monday, which is April 20th, and so we talked about some of the programs that we provide. And so again, cityofvista.com for more information on that. And then last Tuesday, the mayors along the 78 the 5 cities, Carlsbad, Escondido, Oceanside, San Marcos, and Vista, had a launch of what they call Innovate, or what we call Innovate 78, and Councilwoman Rigby was there, as well as the mayor representing the city, and it's basically a branding of the economic development corridor and an initiative that we're trying to do to generate new types of businesses and industries to come to the area. So if you want more information on it, you can go to innovate78.com, and we're hopeful that this is very successful in the years coming. So thank you.
And along with that, we had a couple of events this week as well for Career Day, one held at the Vista Library, and it was actually at the same time as that Innovate 78 that I got a chance to welcome the vendors, and Vista Unified also had a Career Day that they held at in San Marcos, but for Vista Unified students, where there were many employers and universities representing there to recruit kids. So it was good. Vista's doing a lot to try to create employment for the city of Vista, so those are good things, and that's one of our goals that we had, I believe, in our top priorities, so that's good to see. Thank you. Mr. Piper?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Okay. Anything from City Clerk's office? No? Okay. Meeting is concluded. Thank you.
7:27?